When you hear the phrase, the American dream, what immediately pops into your mind? Like right now? Is it that sprawling mansion, the perfect lawn, maybe a private jet waiting on the tarmac, or maybe a garage full of fancy cars you see online?
With the images we get bombarded with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or is it something, I don't know, simpler, like maybe just a decent home, a steady job, your family's comfortable?
Right.
Because what we think the dream is today
Right.
versus what it actually was for a long time, well, they might be two really profoundly different things.
Oh, absolutely. It's true. The whole concept, the idea of the American dream, it's gone through this radical transformation, almost a complete rewrite, you could say, over the last few decades.
Or rewrite, yeah.
And what's really fascinating, maybe a little heartbreaking actually, is how that change has left so many people feeling like they're chasing, I don't know, a ghost, a success that's always just out of reach, like you can't quite grasp it. Exactly. No matter how hard they work, it feels like the goalpost just keeps shifting further and further away.
Yeah.
And the path, the way to actually get there, feels like it's just vanished.
That's precisely it, that feeling. And that's what we're doing today. We're taking a deep dive into how this whole idea of wealth, of success in America has shifted so profoundly.
Right.
We're going to explore why that dream, the one that used to feel, achievable, now feels so incredibly out of reach for so many. And crucially, how modern culture, maybe especially social media, that constant presence, how that feeds into this feeling, this kind of pervasive inadequacy and, frankly, disillusionment.
So our mission today really is to unpack that journey, the whole evolution of the American dream. We'll trace it from its beginnings, which were pretty modest, actually very tangible based on stability, achievable goals, traced all the way to where we are now. Or it often feels like this unattainable, super glamorous fantasy. We'll look at the history, the context, dissect the huge economic shifts that really changed the game, and examine the undeniable, really powerful influence of social media in reshaping what we all think we should be aiming for.
And we're doing this by drawing insights from a really interesting source titled The Dream Without a Ladder: America's Illusions of Wealth and Success.
The Dream Without a Ladder. It's a great title. Really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it?
It really does. And it brings us straight to a question for you listening right now. Have you ever felt like that ladder to success, the one you see everywhere in pop culture? It just isn't really there anymore. Like you can clearly see the goal, the fancy lifestyle, the easy success, but the actual steps, the runs you need to climb to get there, they just sort of vanished, disappeared from under your feet.
It's a very common feeling.
It is. And as we're going to unpack, there's some very solid reasons why so many people feel that way.
Yeah, indeed. What the source material really shows is that the very nature of the dream itself has fundamentally changed. It's not just that the climb got harder. It's like the perception now is that there isn't even a climbable structure there at all for most people.
Okay, let's dig into that then.
Yeah.
Because to really get a handle on where we are now, we absolutely have to go back. We need to understand what the American dream used to look like.
Right.
Because it was dramatically different from the stuff we see flashed across our screens constantly. The core idea, historically, it was all about modesty and, critically, attainability.
Attainability, that's the key word.
Yeah. It wasn't about, crazy excess or showing off wealth. It was about something much more basic. Stability, just having a secure foundation to build your life on.
Exactly. And when you look at how people described the traditional dream, the components were incredibly grounded, almost boring by today's standards, you might say.
Maybe, yeah.
We're talking about phrases that promise just basic, but, dignified comfort, like a chicken in every pot.
Right, the classic.
Or a car in every driveway. Think about that classic picture. A 2-bedroom ranch house bought on one salary. The idea that one person working could comfortably support a family.
Yeah, that feels almost mythical now.
Doesn't it? And the expectation was simply that your kids would do a little better than their parents. Not massively better, just a bit better. This wasn't some, far-fetched, impossible ideal. It was the common, widely accepted, accessible ambition for most people.
And that's the absolute key, isn't it? It wasn't about private jets or mansions in the Hamptons or, jetting off to Bali every other month. It was about building a solid, stable foundation. Owning a small piece of America, maybe. Having the security of knowing your kids had a clear shot at a slightly better life than yours. And that modesty, that's what gave it its strength, really.
Exactly. It was believable, tangible. And that believability, that sense of possibility, that's what fueled generations. It gave people a clear target, something to aim for, and a feeling of shared progress.
It was described, as you said, like a ladder you could actually climb rung by rung.
Yeah. The steps were clear, they were concrete, tangible.
Like what were those rungs?
Steady work, right.
Hmm.
Maybe working for the same company for decades. Diligently paying off your mortgage over, say, 30 years until the house was truly yours. Free and clear.
A huge milestone.
Huge. It meant your kids having a decent chance to go to, say, a state school, get a good education, and graduate without being buried under a mountain of crippling debt. There was a visible path, an actionable path, a widely understood roadmap to achieving that basic comfort and security.
And this just stands in such stark contrast to the modern idea of wealth, which often feels so elusive, you know? Back then, the steps were right there. You could see them, work towards them. You saw your neighbors doing it. Today, for so many people, it feels like those steps are either hidden or they just don't exist for the average person anymore. You're just kind of adrift looking at these images with no clear way to get there.
And connecting this back, that phrase, a chicken in every pot, it has this really fascinating history that perfectly illustrates this point about modesty and, crucially, plausibility.
Oh, yeah. Where did it actually come from?
Well, what's really interesting is it doesn't even originate in America.
No kidding.
Nope. It actually goes way back to 16th century France.
Wow.
It's attributed to King Henri IV. He apparently wished that every single peasant in his kingdom could have a chicken poulo pot in their pot every Sunday.
Every Sunday. Not every day.
Exactly. It wasn't about luxury feasts. For that time, it was actually a pretty revolutionary idea. It was about basic dignity, about sustenance, about a modest, attainable level of comfort for everyone. It spoke to that fundamental need for security, not showing off.
Okay, so how did it jump across the pond and become such an American thing?
Well, centuries later, it resurfaced right here in the U.S. In 1928, smack in the middle of the Roaring '20s. You know, that era of big economic boom, lots of optimism. Republican businessmen ran this big ad in the New York World, and they were basically bragging, boasting about Republican prosperity. And their claim, bold as brass, was that this prosperity had put the proverbial chicken in every pot and a car in every backyard to boot.
Wow. That's quite a claim. Linking policy directly to, well, dinner and driveways.
Exactly. It was a powerful image, suggesting that economic success would directly translate into a better, more comfortable life for everybody.
But there's some political irony there, right? It didn't quite play out smoothly.
Oh, not at all. The Democrats, like Al Smith, jumped all over it. They totally mocked the idea.
Oh, so?
Well, they pointed out the huge disconnect for most working people back then. Smith famously asked how a guy making just $17.50 a week, which was pretty standard for many workers, could possibly expect chicken dinners and a car.
Yeah, seems unlikely.
Right, let alone the silk socks some other people were apparently enjoying. So it immediately became this symbol of a dream that even in the boom times was still out of reach for a lot of folks. It kind of exposed the inequality bubbling just beneath the surface.
And didn't it get tied to Hoover somehow?
Yeah.
Even though he didn't actually say it?
Yeah, that's the strange part. Through this weird twist of political fate and just public perception, it got stuck to Herbert Hoover. It became this symbol of the era's optimism, even though he never personally promised it.
Okay.
And then, of course, the cruel irony hit during the Great Depression. That slogan, a chicken in every pot, which was meant to be hopeful, it turned incredibly bitter.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It became this awful reminder of a promise completely shattered. You had people living in Hoovervilles, these shanty towns,
Right.
and they'd turn their empty pockets inside out and call them Hoover flags, stark symbols of just how bad things were, how wide the gap was between that promised prosperity and the brutal reality.
God, that's grim. But the phrase itself still stuck around.
Incredibly resilient. Even as late as 1960, you had JFK joking about it on the campaign trail. He'd tell crowds Hoover hadn't promised one chicken, but 2 chickens in every pot.
Huh, okay.
The fact that he could still joke about it, even decades later, just shows how deeply that image of attainable comfort, of basic prosperity, was baked into the American psyche. Its meaning shifted, sure, from a king's wish to a political promise to a symbol of broken dreams, but the core idea, that fundamental well-being, stayed powerful.
So the real power of the phrase, tracing it all the way back, wasn't about luxury.
Not at all. It was about plausibility. That's the essence of it. Americans, by and large, weren't dreaming of yachts or estates. They wanted the basics: the chicken, the car, a roof overhead. It was modest, yes, but it felt reachable. It spoke to the dignity of everyday life, the idea that hard work could lead to a stable existence. It felt within grasp.
And that specific idea, that plausibility, that's precisely where the story takes a dramatic turn, isn't it? This whole era of modest, achievable dreams, that foundation of plausibility we've just mapped out. Well, it didn't last. It started to crack, then it started to crumble. And that ladder, the one people had climbed for generations, rung by rung, it began to fall apart.
Yeah, that's right. That critical sense of plausibility, that shared belief in a dream you could actually reach, it really started to erode in the late 20th century.
When exactly?
Specifically, it seems to be after that post-World War II boom. You know, the supposed golden age, suburban growth, manufacturing jobs. After that period, that's when, as our source puts it so well, something broke. The foundation of that old dream, the one that relied on a predictable economy, accessible opportunities, it just started to crack under all these new pressures, economic pressures, global shifts.
And we can point to some really specific things that caused this collapse, right?
Oh, definitely. First, and maybe the biggest one, was wage stagnation.
Okay. What does that mean exactly?
It means that for decades, really starting around the 1970s, wages for most American workers just stopped keeping up. They stopped keeping pace with the rising cost of living, and critically, they stopped keeping pace with how much more productive workers were becoming.
So people were producing more, but not getting paid proportionally more.
Exactly. There are stats showing, like, between the early 70s and maybe 2018, productivity shot up something like 77%. Huge increase. But average hourly wages for regular workers, after you adjust for inflation, they only went up about 12%.
Wow. That's a massive gap.
It's a huge disconnect. And that one salary dream we talked about, where one income could support a family, buy a house, that became harder and harder. And then for many, just impossible. It meant the rungs on that ladder weren't just getting further apart. Some were basically disappearing.
And at the same time, wages were stagnating. Costs for basic stuff were
skyrocketing. Absolutely unprecedented increases in things that used to be fundamental necessities. Housing is the big one.
Right.
Especially in cities and suburbs, prices just ballooned out of reach for millions. What used to be a reasonable investment became this speculative thing, driven by big money, not just people needing a place to live.
And healthcare.
Education.
Same story. Healthcare costs went through the roof. Even if you had insurance through work, the deductibles, the copays, the prescription costs. It became this huge source of financial stress for families.
Yeah.
And education. College costs, student loans. They escalated way faster than inflation. So higher ed went from being this ladder up to becoming this crushing weight, leaving graduates with tons of debt before they even started. These weren't luxuries. These were basics that suddenly became luxury items.
Pulling the dream further away.
Further and further away.
And then came 2008, the financial crisis. That wasn't just a dip, was it?
Oh, God, no. That was a full-blown catastrophe. It was this seismic event that just brutally exposed how fragile this whole redefined dream had become.
Yeah.
The housing market crashed spectacularly.
Because of reckless lending, mostly. Subprime mortgages, complex financial products nobody really understood. It all just unraveled, and it was devastating. Millions of people who genuinely believed they were climbing that ladder, you know, doing the right thing by buying a home.
Yeah.
They suddenly saw that ladder just collapse beneath them instantly. Imagine the shock, the psychological blow, putting everything into your home and then watching its value just evaporate.
Or worse, owing more than it was worth.
Exactly. That's the underwater mortgage. Their equity, years of savings and hard work, gone overnight. Mortgages underwater meant they couldn't sell without huge losses. Many lost their homes entirely through foreclosure.
So the family home, once the symbol of stability,
turned into a financial trapdoor, sucking people into debt and uncertainty. It wasn't just a financial crisis. It felt like a betrayal, a crisis of trust in the whole system, in the promise of the dream itself.
And the impact of that, the psychological impact, it must have been huge. A loss of faith.
Deep. Pervasive. You still feel the echoes today. People didn't just find the ladder hard to climb anymore. They genuinely started to wonder if the ladder was even real, or if it had been pulled up completely.
Yeah.
The trust in the system, in that predictable path, work hard, buy a home, get ahead, it was shattered for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it created this deep void, disillusionment, resentment. People felt abandoned, adrift.
And nature abhors a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
So that void, that empty space left by the crumbling traditional dream, something filled it.
Almost immediately, seamlessly, you could say. Something new stepped in, something powerful. and something profoundly different and arguably deeply problematic.
Which is?
Social media.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
This is where it gets really genuinely insidious, I
Yeah.
think, because social media didn't just, like, offer an alternative view. It completely changed the entire game of aspiration itself.
How so?
Well, think about it. Old TV sitcoms might show, relatable families, comfortable homes, maybe, but not wildly extravagant, sensible cars.
Right, the Cunninghams or the Cleavers.
Exactly. But now,
Yeah.
platforms like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, they deliver this endless, relentless feed of curated excess. It's constant. It's visually stunning. Hyper-edited. It looks like effortless success. And it's hitting you 24/7 right there on your phone.
Yeah, every scroll is a potential comparison trap.
Totally. And it's always this very specific, highly aspirational image designed to make you feel, well, envious or inadequate.
What kind of images are you talking about?
Oh, you know the ones. The penthouse apartment in New York with the insane view. The casual vacation in Bali. Looks like they just woke up there. The brand new luxury SUV parked perfectly in the driveway.
The shopping halls?
Huge shopping hall. Designer bags laid out just so. Or the entire lifestyle brand built around looking effortlessly rich, traveling constantly, eating amazing food. It's this non-stop glittering display. It feels like it's everywhere online, but nowhere near your actual life.
And the really tricky part, the most insidious part of this new dream, this new standard, is how accessible it pretends to be.
Yes, that's the key. Explain that.
The lie, the core deception, is that it's not presented like some Hollywood fantasy, something only movie stars achieve. No. It's cleverly packaged as normal people, just like you, who figure it out, who made it.
Right, the hustle culture narrative sometimes.
Exactly. You see these influencers and they work really hard to seem accessible. They share their morning routines, they give you behind-the-scenes glimpses, they talk about their journey from, humble beginnings, all while showcasing a lifestyle that is, if you just do the math, fundamentally unattainable for the vast majority of the people watching them. It's a performance, a carefully constructed illusion.
And certain figures become almost like templates for this, don't they?
Absolutely. Think about figures like the Kardashians. They aren't just celebrities anymore, admired from afar. They've become the actual template for what success is supposed to look like now. Their lives, their possessions, the apparent ease, the constant stream of perfectly curated moments that's held up implicitly or explicitly as the gold standard. It's a total redefinition of making it. The goalposts have moved from stability and security to just relentless, visible, performative luxury.
And the psychological hit on, you, the listener, on all of us seeing this constantly, it's huge. It's damaging.
Yeah. Because if you don't measure up, and how could you, to this highly curated, often unreal, fundamentally unattainable standard, it feels like personal failure.
Right, like you're doing something wrong.
Exactly. It breeds this intense pressure, this gnawing sense of inadequacy. You feel like you're falling short, even if by any traditional healthy measure you're actually doing okay or even great. It's just this constant, exhausting comparison against somebody else's highlight reel.
Okay, so on one side we have this nonstop fantasy feed, but what about the reality? What about actual wealth in America, the kind that doesn't make it onto Instagram?
Ah, yeah. That's where the contrast becomes incredibly stark. It really highlights the huge gap between perception and reality, a gap that I think too few people really understand or even think about.
Because the reality is often, well, kind of boring. Right?
Exactly. The boring reality of most millionaires, that's never going viral. Our source uses this great example, Arlington, Virginia.
Okay. What's special about Arlington?
Apparently it's just packed with millionaires. Not the kind you see on TV. These are like government workers, teachers, civil servants.
Really?
Yeah. People who put in their 30 years, maybe, maxed out their retirement plans religiously every single year. Maybe they bought their houses way back in the 80s or 90s when prices were totally different.
Right, when it was actually affordable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they just let compound interest and real estate appreciation do the quiet, steady, unspectacular work of building wealth over decades.
So on paper, they're millionaires. They have the net worth.
Definitely. Often millions. But their daily lives, you'd never know it just by looking at them.
What do you mean?
They're driving, a reliable 10-year-old Camry or a Honda, not a Ferrari. They're cooking dinner at home most nights, probably watching their grocery budget. They're worrying about their kids' student loans, just like lots of other middle-class families. Their lifestyle doesn't scream rich in that social media way. It screams responsible, disciplined, patient. There's no flash, no showing off. just quiet financial security built over time.
And that is precisely why that story never makes it onto TikTok or your Instagram feed.
Bingo. It's not glamorous. It's not clickbait. It doesn't offer some magic hack or get-rich-quick secret.
No overnight success.
None. It's the story of consistent effort, careful budgeting, sensible long-term investing, decades of it. And honestly, who wants to watch a video about someone driving an old car and packing a lunch when the next video is a private jet taking off for some exotic island?
Yeah, it doesn't compete visually.
Not at all. The very nature of how this kind of wealth is built slowly, quietly, is the opposite of the instant gratification and visible performance that social media thrives on.
And this disconnect, this reality gap, it leads to another really important point, doesn't it? About how we've kind of quietly redefined what millionaire even means.
Yes. We've inflated the goalposts almost without noticing. It's not really just about having $1 million anymore, is it? Culturally, anyway.
What do you mean?
The constant exposure to extreme wealth, the sheer concentration of money at the very, very top, the media portrayals, it's all subtly shifted the scale. First, maybe it was, $1 million isn't really rich. Then maybe the benchmark crept up to $10 million. And now culturally, the idea of being really rich is maybe closer to $100 million for some people.
Wow, 100 million.
There's this almost darkly funny anecdote in the source about Renaissance Weekend, that exclusive gathering for wealthy, influential types.
Yeah.
Apparently, the insiders there used to joke that you weren't really rich until you hit $10 million. But recently, that inside joke, that informal benchmark, has apparently jumped all the way to $100 million. Think about it. Just having $1 million, which for most people on Earth is still a life-altering amount of money, it's become culturally diminished, almost insignificant in its inflated narrative of what rich means. The term millionaire itself has almost been devalued by this constant exposure to hyperwealth.
This constant upward redefinition of success, inflating what millionaire means. It has a real consequence, doesn't it?
A silent but really corrosive effect. Because while we're all maybe chasing this ever higher, seemingly impossible goal, the $10 million, the $100 million fantasy, the actual ladder, the one for middle-class stability, the one built on modesty, saving, steady progress, that ladder is, as the source says, quietly rotting. This cultural inflation makes real, achievable wealth, the kind that actually provides security and freedom from stress, seem small. Insignificant, maybe even like failure. It actively discourages the very behaviors, saving, investing modestly, living below your means, that actually lead to sustainable financial health. Because why bother saving for $1 million if the culture tells you that's basically nothing?
It's a dangerous game. And this redefinition, this fantasy pushed by social media, it sets up another really common, really problematic lie, doesn't it?
Yes, another trap. We get this constant whisper from consumer culture, from ads, maybe even from, well-meaning online advice.
What's the whisper?
That the little luxuries don't matter, that your small daily splurges, they don't really impact your overall financial health in the grand scheme of things.
Right, the latte factor debate, kind of.
Exactly. It's the soothing idea, this reassurance. Go ahead, get the fancy coffee every day, order takeout for every meal, subscribe to everything. The narrative suggests these little things won't actually derail you because the real problem is the system.
Okay.
The false justification is basically, you could afford a house, you could build wealth, even while spending like crazy on daily stuff, if only the system wasn't stacked against you with high housing costs, stagnant wages, all that.
It's a comforting thought, I guess. It's not my fault.
It's comforting, but it's also a really dangerous delusion.
Okay, but let's be fair. The system is stacked against a lot of people, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Let's be very clear about that. Housing costs are insane in many places. Wages have stagnated for decades for average folks. The playing field is definitely not level. Those systemic issues are absolutely real and they need fixing. But, and this is the crucial point for you, the listener, to really get, because it combines acknowledging the system and personal agency, your burn rate matters too.
Your burn rate. Yeah. Meaning how much you spend day to day.
Exactly. Your daily spending habits, your lifestyle choices, the cumulative impact of all those seemingly small purchases, they absolutely, undeniably affect your ability to save, to invest, to build wealth, to climb whatever ladder might still exist.
So you can't just ignore it.
Ignoring your burn rate while blaming the system is like, I don't know, trying to bail out a leaky boat with a sieve while also leaving the faucet running full blast. It just doesn't work.
This brings us back to that millionaire next door idea, doesn't it? That book from years ago.
It does. That concept, popularized by Stanley and Danko, it feels more relevant now than ever, maybe. Because the practical steps those folks take, the ones who quietly build real wealth, they're incredibly consistent and profoundly unspectacular.
Like what? Remind us.
They save diligently, often automatically. They prioritize future security over buying the next cool thing right now.
Okay.
They cook at home way more often than they eat out or get delivery, saving thousands a year. They drive older, reliable cars paid off, avoiding that constant cycle of car payments and depreciation.
Right. They're not leasing a new BMW every 3 years.
Exactly. And maybe most importantly, they invest steadily over the long haul. Sensible investments, diversification, letting compound interest do its quiet magic over decades.
And the result of all that? Discipline. That seemingly boring stuff.
The result is they systematically build equity. They build retirement savings. It's slow, yes. It's steady. It's definitely not glamorous. It's not going to make you famous online. But it works consistently, predictably.
And contrast that with...
Contrast that with a family that spends pretty much everything they earn on lifestyle. Always upgrading the phone, the car, the house, constantly consuming, chasing the next visible luxury. That family, even if they have a great income, they might never build the ladder at all.
Because there's nothing left over.
Exactly. They're trapped living paycheck to paycheck, even if it's a big paycheck, because their burn rate eats up everything. There's no surplus to save, no capital to invest.
And this, you're saying, is the unpopular truth.
Sadly, yes. This story, the millionaire next door story of slow, disciplined wealth building, it's often the one no one wants to hear.
Why not?
Because it sounds, well, boring. And maybe a little judgmental compared to the sexy fantasy of striking it rich overnight.
Yeah.
The crypto windfall, the instant influencer fame.
Yeah, that sounds more exciting.
It does. But the boring path demands patience. It demands sacrifice, delaying gratification things. Our instant culture doesn't value much anymore. It means actually looking at your own spending, which can be uncomfortable. And it offers no quick fixes, just steady, deliberate progress over a long time.
Okay, so if we pull all these threads together now, where does it leave us? It feels like we're caught between these two powerful, conflicting ideas, these illusions.
That's exactly right. We're trapped as a society, as individuals, between two huge illusions, two big lies that are constantly bombarding us. And the really tragic outcome is that both of them fundamentally warp our imagination. They twist our understanding of what success even is, and they lead us down paths that ultimately go nowhere.
Okay, so recap the two illusions for us.
The first illusion, that's the fantasy of the glamorous overnight millionaire.
Right, the Instagram life.
Exactly. The crypto kings, the influencer lifestyles, the Kardashian model of success. It's this constant aspirational feed pushed relentlessly by social media, promising a fast, effortless path to huge wealth and visible luxury. It sets this impossible benchmark for making it.
Got it. And the second illusion?
That's the consumer culture whisper. That constant nudge telling you it's fine, maybe even smart, to spend recklessly on the little luxuries, that you can still get ahead, still achieve wealth, if only the system wasn't rigged against you.
Yeah, the one that subtly lets you off the hook for your spending.
Precisely. It absolves personal responsibility by blaming everything on the system. And while the system has problems, ignoring your own choices is dangerous.
And both of these are lies.
Fundamentally. They aren't just misleading, they're deeply damaging falsehoods. Both of them warp the imagination, they distort what we aspire to, they divert our attention from what the real American dream actually was, and maybe what it still needs to be if people are going to genuinely find stability and security. They create this huge, unbridgeable gap between what we expect and what's real.
Because the real American dream, going back to the beginning, if we strip away the modern hype, the Instagram filters, the consumerism, it was always about something very different.
Totally different. It was modest, it was slow, it was built on tangible effort, hard work, and crucially, it was genuinely achievable for a lot of people, a broad cross-section.
And that was its power.
That was its power. Its strength, why it resonated for so long, came directly from that attainability, from the widespread, deeply held belief that if you worked hard, played by the rules, lived within your means, you could actually get there.
So the tragedy then isn't simply that the American dream is dead. That's too simple.
Right. That's the common way to put it, but it misses the nuance. The profound insight here, the one our source really hammers home, is that the dream wasn't just killed off. It was replaced.
Replaced by what?
Replaced by a dream with no staircase.
Wow, okay. Unpack that. No staircase.
The traditional steps, the tangible rungs, the affordable home, the steady job that paid enough, the manageable education costs, the clear path to building equity over time, those were gradually dismantled or they became inaccessible for too many people. It left this huge gap, this chasm between where people were and where the dream supposedly was. The destination might still be visible, maybe even amplified, but the path just disappeared.
Can you compare the two dreams directly, the old versus the new?
Yeah, think about it starkly. The old dream, a chicken in the pot, a car in the driveway.
Modest, tangible.
Never glamorous, right? Not designed to make your neighbors jealous, but they were real. They felt like something you could earn through effort, discipline, patience. There's a visible path. A ladder was there, even if it was hard to climb sometimes.
And the new dream?
The penthouse in Malibu, the private jet to Tulum, the closet overflowing with designer stuff. These aren't just hard to get. For most people, they are simply illusions.
But they're presented as real.
Exactly. Presented as normal, even. But they're fundamentally unattainable fantasies for the vast majority. And worse than just being illusions, the source argues they're dead ends.
Dead ends, why?
Because they offer no path between the ground and the sky. There's no ladder, there are no tangible steps, there's no clear, actionable strategy that connects your reality today to that glamorous image. It's a destination with no road leading to it.
And that leads to the final, really powerful conclusion.
Yeah. Without a ladder, a dream is just a taunt.
A taunt.
It's cruel, isn't it? It's this constant glittering reminder of what you don't have, like what it feels like you can't achieve, no matter how hard you work by the old rules.
Yeah.
The societal impact is massive. You have immigrants coming here expecting the Kardashian life because that's the image of America they see.
And facing crushing reality.
Crushing disappointment. You have native-born folks feeling like total failures because they're merely comfortable. They have a stable job, a decent home, a family, but it doesn't look like the fantasy on the screen, so it feels inadequate.
This huge gap between the screen and the driveway, basically.
This widening, unbridgeable gap, it leads to widespread disappointment, chronic anxiety, deep feelings of inadequacy, a constant sense that you're falling behind no matter what. It's a crisis of expectation, really, fueled by this totally flawed, deliberately inflated idea of success that sets almost everyone up to feel like they're failing. It erodes trust, breeds resentment, and undermines that collective hope that used to be part of the story.
And that really brings us to the end of our deep dive today, looking at the dream without a ladder. The big takeaway, the central revelation, is really understanding this profound, often painful shift from a tangible ladder, real attainability, to this elusive, screen-based fantasy of wealth that offers no real way forward.
Yeah, and it's a shift that's had very real, very significant consequences for all of us. It affects how we define success, how we define failure, and how we see our own place in the world.
So as we wrap up, we really want to invite you, the listener, to think about this. How do you define success in this new landscape, this sometimes confusing reality?
What parts of that old dream, the modesty, the stability, the tangible steps, maybe the dignity of just doing good work, what parts of that still resonate deeply with you?
And based on what we've talked about, are there deliberate steps you can take towards building a dream that's truly achievable, truly fulfilling for you? Maybe one that's grounded more in your reality and sustainable choices, rather than chasing those fleeting illusions on a screen.
Maybe it does mean taking another look at your own burn rate. Or maybe embracing some of that quiet, boring discipline of the millionaire next door. Finding your own ladder, perhaps.
And here's a final thought to leave you with. Given that our culture has so dramatically shifted the goalposts, moving the definition of success away from modesty and stability towards glamorous excess, consider this. How might society be implicitly redefining failure as a result?
That's a heavy question.
It is. If just being comfortably stable is no longer seen as enough, what does that mean for your personal well-being, your mental health, your sense of self-worth, and what are the hidden costs, the collective costs of that redefinition on our shared aspirations, on our ability to build something real and lasting instead of just chasing a fantasy?
Yeah. Something definitely worth pondering as you navigate your own path in this, this very transformed world.